The city had once been alive with lights, voices, and the smell of warm meals. Now it was only smoke and ashes. Buildings leaned broken against each other, their shadows stretching across streets filled with rubble. In that broken silence, too, small alien sisters stood barefoot, their thin arms wrapped tightly around themselves. Their hair, once silvery and neat, now hung dirty across their pale faces. Their large glowing eyes searched for food that no longer existed. They were hungry, far more than they had ever been in their short lives. Hunger had become their enemy, a sharp pain that never left their stomachs. Their stepfather had shouted at them that morning, his voice like fire cracking against stone. "All you do is eat too much." He had roared before storming out. He had not come back. He had left them in the ruins without care, without food, without even looking back. The sisters understood then that they had been abandoned. They held hands as they wandered the ruined alley. The air smelled of burnt stone and stale smoke. Each step felt heavy, but their small legs carried them forward because standing still meant giving up. They whispered to each other softly, voices trembling. "Will he come back?" the younger one asked. The older shook her head. She was trying to be brave, but her lips trembled. "No, he is gone." When they turned a corner, they froze. Ahead of them crouched a figure, not another alien, not one of their kind. It was a human. They had been taught to fear humans. Stories whispered in frightened voices told of humans being dangerous, unpredictable, creatures of war who thrived in chaos. But this human did not look like the stories. His clothes were torn but neat, his face rough with dark stubble, and his eyes, instead of cruel, looked tired and kind. He was holding a piece of bread and an orange-red fruit, something rare and glowing faintly in the smoke. The sisters stepped back quickly, their bare feet scraping against the broken stones. The human looked up at them, noticing their fear. Slowly, carefully, he set the bread and fruit down on the ground and pushed it toward them. He did not move closer. His hand stayed open, palm showing, like he wanted them to know he meant no harm. The older sister pulled the younger behind her. Her heart raced. Every warning screamed in her mind. Humans bring danger. Humans cannot be trusted. But the smell of bread drifted up, warm and soft, and her stomach twisted painfully. The younger one whimpered. The human's voice was low, deep, but not harsh. "Eat," he said gently, just one word. The way he said it made it sound less like a command and more like a gift. The girls hesitated, looking at each other. Their stepfather's angry face flashed in their memory, his hand striking the table, his voice blaming them for hunger. He had said they were worthless. And here was a stranger, not even one of their kind, offering food without asking for anything. The older girl took a step forward, then another. Her bare foot touched the dusty ground near the bread. She bent down, picked it up, and sniffed. It smelled real. She broke it in half, gave one piece to her sister, and together they bit into it. The taste filled their mouths with warmth, soft and real, and tears spilled down their faces. The human watched them, his expression softening. He reached into his coat and pulled out another piece of fruit. He rolled it gently across the ground toward them. The younger sister grabbed it quickly, clutching it to her chest as if afraid it would vanish. For the first time in days, they were not hungry. For the first time in weeks, someone had looked at them not with anger, but with care. The older sister stared at the human, her eyes narrowing in confusion. Why? Why would he help them? He was human. He was supposed to be cruel. Instead, he had given them what they needed most. The man leaned back against the wall, his hands resting on his knees. He did not speak again. He only watched to make sure they ate, his gaze filled with something strange, something neither sister had seen before. It was not pity. It was not anger. It was something that felt warm, something that reminded them of the family they had never really known. When the bread was gone, the younger one licked her fingers shyly and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was small but clear. The man nodded once, silent but firm, as if her words had meant more than anything else in this broken world. The older sister still did not fully trust him. She stood straighter, trying to protect her sibling. But, deep inside, a small piece of fear had been replaced with something else. It was not safety, not yet, but it was hope. The streets around them remained cold and dangerous, but in that ruined alley, with crumbs still in their hands, the sisters realized something important. Their stepfather had left them because of food. But a human, someone who owed them nothing, had given them food freely, and sometimes, in a world filled with hunger and war, that was the beginning of something greater than blood. The night came, cold and sharp, wrapping the broken city in shadows. Fires had long burned out, leaving only black scars across stone and metal. The two alien sisters sat close together under the remains of a fallen roof, clutching the last piece of fruit the human had given them. Their stomachs felt fuller than they had in weeks, but their hearts were restless. The younger one leaned against her sister and whispered, "Why did he give us food?" Her eyes, glowing faintly in the darkness, searched for answers. The older sister shook her head, her hair falling over her thin face. "I don't know. Humans don't do that. At least not for us." They both remembered their stepfather's angry voice, his cruel words still echoing. "Useless mouths. All you do is eat." He had thrown scraps at them like they were animals. Then he left them to starve. Yet the human they met had offered them bread without asking for anything. It made no sense, and the unknown was both frightening and strange. The next morning, the sisters rose with tired eyes. They decided to follow the human from a distance. He had disappeared into the ruins after giving them food. But their small feet carried them along the cracked streets, searching for him. They moved quietly, their pale skin blending into the smoke and dust. They found him near an abandoned market, crouched low as he scavenged. His movements were quick and careful, like someone used to surviving alone. He picked through broken crates, found a sealed jar, and placed it into his bag. The girls stayed hidden, watching him with curiosity. Hours passed. When the man finally stopped to rest, he sat by a crumbled wall and pulled out a piece of bread. The older sister's stomach growled so loudly that the younger one covered her mouth with a hand, but the man's head turned. His eyes met theirs in the shadows. They froze. Instead of anger, the human gave a small sigh. He reached into his bag and tossed another piece of bread toward them. It landed close to their feet. "Eat," he said again, his voice calm and steady. This time they didn't hesitate as long. Hunger won over fear. They stepped out of hiding and sat down carefully, leaving a small space between them and him. They tore the bread in half and chewed slowly, their wide eyes never leaving his face. The man didn't speak much. He only watched the ruins with alert eyes, as if listening for dangers that the girls couldn't hear. But he didn't chase them away, either. That silence felt strange, not cold, but protective. Days turned into a pattern. The humans scavenged, and the sisters followed. He always noticed them, and he always gave them food. Sometimes a scrap of bread, sometimes a small fruit, once even a cooked piece of meat he had saved. He never ate until he was sure they had taken their share. The girls began to trust him, though slowly. They whispered to each other in their alien tongue, wondering why he stayed near them. The younger one laughed once when he struggled to open a rusty can, and the sound of her laughter surprised even her. It had been so long since she last laughed. One evening, the older sister gathered her courage. She asked him a question in broken human words. "Why? Help us." Her voice trembled. The man looked at her for a long time, his jaw tightening. Finally he answered with simple words. "Because you need it, and because no one else will." His answer struck deep. No one else had ever spoken to them like that. No one else had ever looked at them as if they mattered. The sisters began to walk beside him instead of behind. Their steps grew lighter, their faces less pale as they ate real meals for the first time in weeks. But not everyone in the ruined city approved. One afternoon, while the man searched for supplies, a group of older aliens spotted the sisters near him, their faces twisted in disgust. "Why are you with a human?" One sneered. "Have you no shame? He is not one of us." The sisters shrank back, their small hands trembling. The human stood between them and the angry voices. He said nothing, but his stance was clear. His broad shoulders shielded them, his presence like a wall. The elders spat at the ground and walked away, muttering about betrayal and dishonor. The sisters clung to the man's coat, their bodies shaking. He crouched down and met their eyes. "You're safe," he said firmly. That night they stayed closer to him than ever before. The fire he built crackled softly, casting warm light on their faces. The girls curled up near each other, but their eyes never left him. For the first time, they felt that someone was willing to stand for them, not against them. The older sister whispered in the dark, her voice filled with new resolve. "He is not our kind, but he is kinder than anyone we have known." The younger one nodded sleepily, clutching the fruit he had given her like a treasure. The human sat quietly, watching over them with a tired but steady gaze. He did not call himself their father. He did not ask for their loyalty. But his actions spoke louder than words, and slowly, without realizing it, a bond had formed. It was not written by blood. It was not bound by law. It was born in silence, bread, and kindness, and it was stronger than either of the sisters could yet understand. Asterisk. The ruin seemed quieter now that the girls walked beside him instead of hiding in the shadows. Their small steps matched his heavy ones, and though their fragile bodies still looked weak, their faces carried something new, a glow of life returning. The human never said much, but his presence was enough to make the sisters feel less invisible. Every morning, he showed them how to search for food. He taught them to look under broken stone where roots still grew, or to test the smell of water before drinking it. His hands were scarred, proof of a hard life, but they worked with care. He never wasted food, never wasted energy, and never ignored danger. The younger sister followed his every move, eyes wide with curiosity. She copied how he used a knife to cut fruit, how he checked shadows before stepping into alleys. The older sister stayed more guarded, always ready to pull her sibling back, but her suspicion had begun to fade. Every time the man shared his bread, every time he lifted them over broken walls instead of leaving them behind, her heart questioned less. One evening, the man stopped near a collapsed tower. He pulled out 3 pieces of bread from his pack. 2 he handed to the sisters. The third he broke in half, keeping only a small piece for himself. The older girl frowned. "You eat too little." Her words were broken, but her meaning was clear. The man looked at her calmly, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "I eat enough, you need more." His tone left no room for argument. The sisters ate in silence, their throats tight. They had never seen an adult give up food for them. Their stepfather had stolen from their plates, yelling when they asked for more. This human was the opposite. He starved so they could live. For the first time, the older sister whispered, "Thank you." The words came awkward, but they were real. The man gave a small nod, and though his face stayed hard, his eyes softened. But peace did not last long. Word of the bond between the sisters and the human spread through the ruins. Groups of alien survivors watched with cold stares. Some muttered about shame. Others whispered about danger. A few even suggested the girls were cursed, that no child of their kind should cling to a human. One afternoon, while the man searched for metal scraps, an alien elder confronted him. His body was thin, but his voice sharp as a blade. "You shame. U.S. human. Those children belong with their own blood. Not with you." The man straightened slowly, his face unreadable. "Their blood left them," he answered, his voice steady. The elder's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand our ways. They cannot walk beside you. It is dishonor." The girls pressed against the human side, their hearts racing. He placed one hand lightly on the younger one's shoulder, steadying her. He spoke again, his voice low but firm. "Then your ways are wrong." The elder hissed and walked away, his cloak snapping behind him. But his words left behind danger heavier than smoke. That night, the fire crackled quietly as the sisters huddled close. Their faces were pale with fear. The older whispered, "They will take us." The human looked at them, his jaw tense. He said nothing for a long time. Finally, he crouched down so his eyes met theirs. "No," he said firmly. "No one takes you." The girls stared at him, confused. No one had ever spoken for them like that. No one had ever promised safety. They had been abandoned too many times to believe easily. Yet his words were sharp as steel, unshakable. The next days tested that promise. Raiders moved through the ruins, desperate for supplies. The human fought them off once with his knife, pushing the girls behind him. His movements were strong, brutal, but controlled. When it was over, his arm bled, yet he checked the girls first, brushing dirt from their faces. Younger one cried softly, pressing her small hands against his cut as if to stop the blood. He winced but did not push her away. The older sister stared, her heart trembling with something she had never felt before. Trust. That night, as the firelight flickered, she spoke again. "Why us? Why stay?" The man's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Because you deserve better." Those words settled deep inside them. Their stepfather had told them they were a burden. The elders told them they were shame. But this human, this stranger, told them they deserved more. From then, the sisters began to call him something in their own language, a word that meant protector. They whispered it when they were afraid, when they were grateful, when they were safe by his side. The human never asked for the word's meaning. But when he heard it, a rare smile touched his lips. Still, he knew a choice was coming. The elders would not let this go. The raiders would not stop hunting. The ruins were no place for children. He could keep moving alone, or he could risk everything by keeping them close. When the girls slept curled together, the man sat awake, watching the broken city. His hand rested on his knife, his eyes on the shadows. He thought of the two small faces, of the way their eyes lit when they tasted bread, of the word they now called him. He breathed out slowly, as if sealing his fate. The choice was already made. He would not abandon them, not ever. The ruins grew more dangerous with each passing day. Food became harder to find, water grew stale, and the air carried the sound of footsteps that were not friendly. Yet the sisters no longer walked with bent heads. They stayed close to the human, their small hands clutching his worn coat as if it was a shield against the whole world. But the world had begun to notice them too much. The elders of the surviving aliens gathered in what was once a temple. Its roof had fallen, leaving only broken walls and the carved symbols of old times. Smoke from small fires curled through the air as the voices of the elders rose. Their faces were sharp with anger, their robes torn but still worn with pride. "The children are corrupted," one hissed. "They walk with a human, call him protector." "It is a disgrace," another added. "If we allow this, our young will forget who we are." "They must be taken back," a third growled, "before this spreads." The decision was made quickly. Word spread through the ruined streets that the sisters would be taken from the human's care, whether he agreed or not. The older sister overheard whispers one morning as she fetched water. Her heart pounded as she ran back to their hiding place. "They will take us," she cried, her voice sharp with fear. The younger one clutched her tightly, eyes wide and wet with tears. The human listened quietly, his face calm but his eyes burning. He crouched down before them. "Listen to me," he said firmly. No one takes you. Not while I breathe." The words shook with strength, but the sisters still trembled. They had seen too many promises broken. But when he placed his rough hand over theirs, steady and warm, they felt something different. This was not a man who spoke empty words. The next day, the elders came. A group of alien men, stronger and taller, arrived at the humans' shelter. Their steps were heavy, their voices sharp. "Human," the leader spat, "you keep what is not yours. Give the children back." The human stood between the men and the sisters. His posture was calm, but his eyes were cold steel. "Their blood abandoned them," he said. "I will not." The leader's face twisted. "You are nothing. You have no right." "I have the only right that matters," the human answered. "I care for them." The men moved forward, but the human did not step aside. His hand tightened on the handle of his knife. Behind him, the sisters clung to each other, their small bodies shaking. The standoff lasted long minutes. Finally, the men spat at the ground and left, muttering about shame and punishment. But their eyes carried a promise. This was not over. That night, the fire burned low. The sisters sat close to the man, their faces pale with fear. The older one whispered, "They hate us." The man shook his head. "They hate me," he corrected, "not you." But the younger sister pressed her face against his arm. "If they hate you, they hate us too, because we stay." For the first time, the man looked startled. Slowly, he placed his arm around them, pulling them closer. "Then we stay together," he said softly. The days that followed were tense. Everywhere they went, eyes followed. Some spat when they passed, others turned their backs. The children who once played near the ruins now ran, away at the sight of the sisters. The whispers grew louder: shame, betrayal, dishonor. But the bond between the three only grew stronger. The human showed the girls how to climb safely, how to hide from raiders, how to catch small animals. The sisters laughed again when he pretended to fumble with fire-making, pretending to lose against the sparks, until the younger one giggled so much she forgot her hunger. Yet even laughter could not silence the growing storm. One evening, as the sky burned orange behind the broken towers, the stepfather returned. His shadow fell long across the ground as he approached. His face was sharp, his eyes narrow, his mouth twisted with bitterness. "You," he snarled at the girls, "you are mine. You shamed me by walking with this human. Come back now." The sisters froze. Old fear gripped them like chains. Their stepfather had always been cruel, his words knives sharper than any blade. Human stepped forward, placing himself between the stepfather and the children. His voice was calm, but it carried weight like stone. "They are not yours. You left them." The stepfather's laugh was cold. "I left them because they were weak, because they eat too much. They are burdens. But now to restore my name, I will take them back." The sisters clutched the man's coat, their bodies trembling. The younger one whispered, "Don't let him." The man's eyes hardened. "I won't." The stepfather sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you can keep them? You are only human. Our people will stand with me. You cannot fight them all." The human did not answer with words. He only placed his hand on the knife at his side, his stance unshakable. The sisters pressed against him, their fear slowly replaced by something else. They had been abandoned once. They would not be abandoned again. That night, as they lay together under the ruined roof, the older sister whispered into the dark, "He will come back. They will all come back." The younger asked, her voice small, "What will happen to us?" The human's voice answered softly from the shadows, steady and certain. "Whatever happens, we face it together." And for the first time, the sisters believed those words. The ruins were no longer just broken stone and silence. Now they carried tension like a storm waiting to break. The sisters felt it each time they stepped outside with the human. The eyes of their people followed, sharp and accusing. Their whispers grew louder. Shame, traitors, children of dishonor. But the sisters no longer walked with bowed heads. They walked beside the man who fed them, protected them, and never left. Their small hands clung to his worn coat, and when the stairs grew too heavy, they pressed closer to him, finding courage. In his calm strength, that the stepfather did not stay away long. Days after his return, he came again, this time with others. His voice echoed through the ruins, full of false pride. "See how my children cling to a human. See how he steals what is mine. I will take them back, and you will all know I restore. My honor." The sisters shook, but the human stepped forward. His shoulders were broad, his knife glinting faintly in the pale light. "They are not yours," he said firmly. "You abandoned them. They chose me." The stepfather's face twisted with rage. "They are weak. They eat too much. They are nothing without me." The older sister shouted back, her voice breaking but strong. "We are nothing with you." Her words carried through the ruined streets, silencing even the whispers of the watching crowd. The stepfather's eyes burned with hatred. "You dare?" He lunged forward, but the human's arm shot out, pushing him back with a force that knocked him into the dirt. The crowd gasped. No one had ever struck an elder before. The stepfather scrambled to his feet, humiliated. "This is not over," he spat, before retreating into the shadows. That night, the sisters sat close to the human near the fire. Their faces were pale, but their eyes burned with something new, courage. The older one whispered, "We said no to him." For the first time, the man nodded, his rough face softening. "You were brave." The younger girl curled against his side, whispering through tears, "He will come again." The man's hand rested gently on her head. "Then we will be ready." Days later, the attack came. The stepfather returned, not alone but with raiders. They came through the ruins like shadows with sharp steel, their eyes filled with greed and anger. The sisters screamed as they saw them approach. The human pulled them behind him, his knife flashing in the firelight. The fight was brutal. The raiders struck with fury, but the human moved with precision. He fought not for glory, but for survival, and for the two small lives behind him. His knife cut through the dark, his fists slammed into attackers, and his body absorbed blows that would have killed weaker men. The sisters watched with wide eyes, their hearts pounding. Each time the human staggered, they cried out, but each time he rose again, standing tall like an unbreakable wall. One raider lunged for the girls, but the older sister grabbed a burning stick from the fire and swung with desperate strength. The flame struck the raider's arm, and he cried out in pain, stumbling back. The younger one threw stones with shaking hands, her voice screaming in defiance. They were no longer only children. They were his daughters in spirit, fighting beside him. When the last raider fell, the human stood panting, blood running down his arm. His chest rose and fell heavy, but his eyes turned first to the sisters. "Are you hurt?" he asked. They shook their heads, tears streaming down their cheeks. "No, because of you." The stepfather crawled from the shadows, beaten and furious. His eyes were wild as he pointed at the girls. "You are mine," he screamed. "By blood, by law, you belong to me." The older sister's voice cut through the air. "No." Her body shook, but her words did not. She pulled the younger one close, lifting her chin proudly. "We choose him. He is our real father." The stepfather froze, his face twisting as if the words had struck harder than any blade. Around them, the crowd that had gathered to watch murmured. Their eyes, once full of shame and accusation, now shifted with doubt. The human wiped blood from his face, his voice steady as he looked at the stepfather. "You lost them when you walked away. They are not yours." The stepfather hissed, his pride shattered. With a final glare, he stumbled into the darkness, vanishing from the ruins. The crowd remained silent. Some turned away, others whispered, but none moved against the man and the children. For the first time, no one dared to separate them. That night, as the fire burned low, the sisters pressed close to the man. Their small hands gripped his arm tightly. The older whispered, "We stood with you." The man nodded. His tired face softened with a rare smile. "And I with you." The younger whispered into the silence, her voice trembling but full of truth. "You are our Father." The words hung in the air, warm and unshakable. The man did not answer at first. He only pulled them close, his arms wrapping around them. For the first time in his long, hard life, he felt what it meant to be needed, not as a fighter, not as a survivor, but as family. And in that moment, the chains of blood and law broke. In their place was something stronger, the bond of heart. The days after the battle were quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of a city watching. Everywhere the sisters walked with the human, eyes followed. Some were filled with scorn, others with unease, but many carried something else now, doubt. The stepfather's defeat had been seen by too many. His words of shame had been broken by his own weakness. The sisters did not hide anymore. They walked proudly beside the man, their hands gripping his coat, their glowing eyes set forward. They were no longer abandoned children begging for scraps. They had chosen, and their choice gave them strength. The human bore his wounds quietly. His arm remained bandaged, his body sore, but he never showed weakness before the girls. He still searched for food, still guarded their sleep, still rose each time danger came near. His silence was steady, and in that silence, the sisters felt safety. But the elders were not finished. One evening, as the sky dimmed into pale purple, the elders called a gathering. Survivors filled the broken temple, their voices rising like a wave. At the center stood the human with the two sisters beside him. Across from them stood the elders, faces twisted with pride and anger. "This cannot continue," one elder declared. "Our kind is mocked because two of our own cling to a human. They shame us all." "They shame nothing," the human said. Quietly, his voice cutting through the crowd. "They are children, they are alive. That is no shame." The elder's eyes flashed. "You cannot keep them. By our law, they belong with their blood." The older sister stepped forward, her small hands clenched at her sides. Her voice rang loud, echoing through the broken walls. "Our blood left. He left us to starve. He called us burdens. He is not our father." The younger one raised her head, her voice trembling but clear. "He fed us. He fought for us. He stayed. He's our real father." The crowd stirred, voices murmuring. Some turned away, ashamed. Others looked uncertain. The words of two small girls carried more truth than the laws of old men. The stepfather, his pride shattered but not gone, pushed forward through the crowd. His face was wild, his voice dripping with rage. "They are mine," he screamed. "I will not lose to a human." The human met his glare without flinching. His hand rested on the knife at his side, but his voice was calm, like stone unmoved by storm. "You lost them when you left them. You lost the right to call yourself father." The stepfather lunged, but before he could reach them, the sisters stepped in front of the man. Their small bodies stood like shields. "No," the older one said firmly. "You cannot touch us." The younger one's voice cracked with tears, but her words were sharp. "We are his now." The crowd gasped. The stepfather froze, his face pale with shock. No blade, no fight, no law could strike harder than those words. His voice broke into a roar, but no one moved to help him. The elders turned their eyes away, ashamed to stand with him. He stumbled back, beaten not by fists but by truth, and disappeared into the shadows for the last time. The silence that followed was heavy. Then, slowly, voices rose, not in anger this time, but in acceptance. Some whispered that perhaps the old ways were broken. Some nodded toward the human with reluctant respect. A few even said aloud, "Maybe he is more father than the one who left." The human did not smile, did not claim victory. He only knelt, pulling the sisters close, his arms wrapping around them. Their small faces buried against his chest, their tears warm against his shirt. "You are safe now," he murmured. "No one will take you again." The older girl whispered back, her voice steady, "You are our father." The younger echoed softly, "Forever." And in that broken city, among ashes and ruins, something unbreakable was born. Not from blood, not from law, but from choice, from care, from love stronger than chains. The world still judged, the world still doubted, but none of it mattered. They had found what they needed most, a family,